is actually the plan of salvation. If you really go into it in depth, you see that every day of creation shows you detailed plan of salvation. Okay, so from darkness into light, from sanctification, the waters parting, and so on and so forth. So the third day talks about the land emerging from the waters, and it represents many things. One of the things it represents inheritance. And Jesus was our inheritance, right? So land is inheritance, because today on the earth, people fight over property. I mean, yesterday or day before, I heard this whole story about, one of my friends saying, this one's got this, and I thought, why do we need to fight? We don't need to, but really, that's my inheritance. I need to fight for my inheritance, because that's the plan of God. God's said, don't give up your birthright, it's your inheritance. And Jesus is our inheritance. And if you look further down, it says on the third day, actually two things happen. One, the land comes forth, and three kinds of vegetation are planted on the land. So there's grass, herbs, and trees, or grass, plants, and trees. And that actually talks about the fruit of the Spirit and the gifts of the Spirit a little bit later. But that's another story. But anyway, so what I want to say is, land to God is important. And like I said yesterday, 1,117 times God refers to land in the Bible. 880 times He refers to nations. And there's so much about land, countries, nations, and so on and so forth. So, when you look at why is God constantly talking about a nation, why is He constantly talking about a land, what is He saying? We need to take note, because there is a plan and a purpose as to why He's talking about it. He never refers to denominations. In church also is like mentioned only a few times, but land is mentioned all the time. And even in the last days, or in the end, you see it's about the sheep nations and the goat nations, right? So it's about a nation. And when we realize, when I realized that God had a plan, that I needed to understand my destiny, and my destiny could be realized only if I linked it to the nation, my life began to just take off, spiritually, and even business-wise, or whatever else I'm doing. So I realized, oh my gosh, for all these years I just played church. So I just went a little bit up, but I didn't go beyond a certain point. But the moment I began to say, Lord, your heart is for the land and for the nation, and my focus needs to shift to the nation. All heaven basically broke loose. Okay, so let me just give you a couple of things that He's been, talking to me over the years. Okay, so yesterday I tried to activate your spirit, to understand your spirit, and show you how when you begin to move in your spirit, you'll really begin to have understanding of what God is saying, and you can really move ahead. So the one thing you need to realize, that what your spirit knows, your soul will never ever know or understand. And in fact, when your spirit is moved to do something, your soul will tell you, that's not a good idea, because you can go and get killed. Like when we were going to India, this pastor from India, we were supposed to go in August, he was in Sri Lanka in June, somewhere in June, and I told him these are the places we're going to visit and minister. He said, oh, that's the place that the Christians are killed. I thought, oh no, what's going to happen if we go to India? I don't worry about those things, but I think some people got afraid. So their soul said, maybe we should back out of this trip. But my spirit said, no, you need to go. And I love when somebody tells me, that's a bad place to go, the hard ground is hard, that's where I go. Because that's where God's going to have breakthrough. Yeah? So whenever somebody says, oh, no, that's difficult territory, this is not the place to do anything, you need to go there. Okay? Because remember what Jesus said, you are the church, right? And the gates of hell shall not prevail against you. So when you walk towards the gate of hell, the gate just opens, right? So that's how we are. So turn to your neighbor and say, you are the church of Jesus Christ, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against you. breathing into this mic, right? There's Chris. Like, okay. So again, when you check your spirit, you realize that, have you ever thought of, why am I drawn to a particular country? Like I was telling Gail, I'm beginning to, God's been stirring my spirit, and He's saying, you need to go to Australia. I really don't know when or what time, but I know that my spirit is stirring and drawing me to Australia. Okay, like God began to stir my spirit, and He said, I need you to go to India. I said, Lord, I'll go anywhere but India. And I mean, it's amazing now what God's been doing in India through the enforcers. So the point is, our spirit knows stuff that our soul has no clue about. That is why it's really important that you get in touch with your spirit, because when you know what your spirit is doing, your spirit is so linked to God that when you understand your spirit, you can move in the things and the plans of God. Even where time is concerned. When we organize these conferences, I actually sit with God. We have these meetings. He's the CEO, I'm the secretary. I write down what He tells me to do, and the timings of it, which month He wants me to do it, even the dates. And it's amazing, because some speakers, you can't get them easily. But God tells me, you call them, they will come, because I've made them free to come at this time. So, I mean, I can tell you testimony after testimony about what God does. But get in touch with your spirit, because then you will understand how much you are linked to your land. Okay.